Hello, everyone, and welcome to Markets Talk, your weekly market update from Daba Finance, where we make African markets, particularly Francophone Africa, simple, clear, and useful for every investor. The BRVM closed the week of June 22nd to 26, 2026 in positive territory. And this was not just a small, isolated rebound, it was the second consecutive week of gains for the equity market. For investors, this means one simple thing. Confidence is gradually returning, and several areas of the market are still showing opportunities. The BRVM Composite Index, which tracks the overall performance of the market, rose by 1.57% to close at 449.82 points. The BRVM 30 gained 1.72% to finish at 211.17 points. The BRVM Prestige advanced by 1% to 175.14 points. And the BRVM Principal rose even more strongly, gaining 2.03% to reach 321.43 points. Why does this matter for you? Because when all the major indices move higher at the same time, it shows that the rally is not limited to one stock. It reflects broader momentum across large companies, several sectors, and different parts of the market. Another key number, trading volumes more than doubled. The market recorded 10,186,648 shares traded, compared with 4,881,690 shares the previous week. That means volumes increased by 122.60%. But here's the important detail. The total value of transactions fell by 3.76% to 9.207 billion francs CFA. This was mainly because Ecobank Transnational Incorporated Togo, also known as ETIT, accounted for a very large share of volumes, while trading at only 37 francs CFA per share. In simple terms, many more shares changed hands, but a large part of that activity came from a low-priced stock. So the number of shares traded jumped, even though the total value of trades went down. That is why investors must always look at both volume and value. Now let's look at the top stocks of the week. Africa Global Logistics Côte d'Ivoire delivered the strongest performance, rising by 9.91% to 2,550 francs CFA. BOA Niger followed with a gain of 9.44% to 4,115 francs CFA. ETIT completed the top three with a rise of 8.82% to 37 francs CFA. This movement is interesting. For Africa Global Logistics, investors appear to be anticipating positive updates from the 2025 annual results and the 2026 first quarter results. For BOA Niger, the rebound may reflect renewed appetite for selected regional banking stocks. And for ETIT, the low share price continues to attract investors looking for accessible exposure to a pan-African banking group. But a healthy market is not only about gains, it also includes corrections. Filtasac Côte d'Ivoire fell by 9.03% to 1,965 francs CFA, after 2025 results that investors viewed as disappointing. Bernabe Côte d'Ivoire declined by 6.43%. Cervere Abidjan also fell, losing 3%. For investors, these declines are a useful reminder. Dividends, earnings growth, and business quality must always be analyzed together. In terms of the most actively traded stocks by value, Sitab Côte d'Ivoire led the market with 1.08 billion franc CFA in transactions, representing 11.62% of total trading value. BOA Côte d'Ivoire followed with 910.9 million franc CFA, while Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire recorded 653.1 million francs CFA. This confirms continued investor interest in liquid stocks with visibility and yield potential. Now let's turn to bonds. The bond market saw its capitalization decline for the second consecutive week, reaching 13,108 billion francs CFA. That represents a decrease of 0.21%. Still, activity remains significant, with 822,479 securities traded for a total value of 3.18 billion francs CFA. The most active bond was the 10-year Côte d'Ivoire Treasury bond with a 5.90% coupon, with 140,318 securities traded for 910.5 million francs CFA. A bond is basically a loan made to a government or company. When you buy a bond, you lend money and usually receive interest. For more cautious investors, bonds can help bring stability and regular income to a portfolio. Looking ahead, several bond yields remain worth watching, including 8-year and 10-year securities from regional issuers, with coupons around 6%. These may interest investors seeking income, but maturity, price, liquidity, and issuer risk must always be considered. Now, dividends. The 2026 dividend season remains very active. 34 out of 47 listed companies have announced or proposed a dividend. The average yield is around 4.85%. Some of the companies that stood out include Sonatel, BOA Côte d'Ivoire, BOA Burkina, BOA Benin, Ecobank, Côte d'Ivoire, Orange Côte d'Ivoire, Onatel, Coris Bank, Palm Côte d'Ivoire, BC, Total Senegal, and SIB. Some dividends have already been paid, others are confirmed, and some are still awaiting official publication. To track all dates, yields, and payments, download the Daba app and check the full dividend calendar. On the WAEMU news front, 3 developments stood out. First, Côte d'Ivoire wants to revive diamond production in the Ségéla region with support from Botswana. For investors, this signals an effort to diversify the mining sector. Second, the World Bank approved an additional $163 million, around 91 billion francs CFA, to strengthen social cohesion in Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, and Togo. This supports local infrastructure, jobs, and stability in border areas. Third, Senegal's debt debate is back in focus. Greater clarity with creditors and the IMF could reduce uncertainty, but the process remains sensitive. For the week of June 29th to July 3rd, opportunities remain selective. Analysts continue to see potential in banking, telecoms, and yield-focused stocks, but the specific names and entry levels are reserved for Daba Pro subscribers. The key lesson is simple. The market is rising, but investors still need discipline. To build that discipline, check out Daba Academy. There is an ongoing promotion. Use the code PODCAST to get a 3,000 francs CFA discount on your Daba Academy registration. And to receive weekly recommendations, exclusive analysis, advanced data, and reduced investment fees, subscribe to Daba Pro. With Daba Pro, you do not just follow the markets, you stay ahead of them. That was your weekly recap with Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. The BRVM is moving higher, dividends are still flowing, and next week's opportunities are already taking shape. Stay curious, stay disciplined, and above all, stay invested.